wanted to speak about symbolism, woke billionaires who pay no tax, and quiet achievers who do the heavy lifting in this country. This week, the Washington Redskins caved into the pressure from the hate mob and cowardly corporates and agreed to review their famous moniker. It is expected that they'll be renamed with something less triggering to the woke snowflakes who go through life looking for opportunities to be offended. The truth is that most American Indians have no problem with the Redskins nickname. Indeed, a 2016 Washington Post survey of Native Americans in every state and the district showed that 9 out of 10 were not offended by the name of the NFL franchise. The poll mirrored the results of previous surveys of American Indians. And yet, here we are. Native Americans aren't offended, but there are plenty of race-obsessed white leftists who are offended on their behalf and bullying the team through its sponsors to change its name. Talking about changing highly impactful and much-loved symbols, this week we saw a new Australian-made logo, which for some reason will be used alongside the kangaroo symbol, needlessly confusing consumers and businesses, both here and abroad. The new design, which costs taxpayers millions, will be used by business, industry and government. It is supposed to be inspired by the national flower, the wattle, but has been likened to bird poo on a windscreen and the coronavirus. And I've got to say, it looks not dissimilar to the NBN logo. Industry experts have slammed it as, and I quote, confusing, technically flawed, unoriginal, unnecessary, and difficult to reproduce. Money well spent, obviously. And what a ridiculous time to be fiddling with Australian-made branding. Since the coronavirus outbreak, inquiries about using the Australian-made logo have jumped by more than 400%. What makes this entire exercise even more absurd is that there was research completed in December that found that the kangaroo logo was not only highly trusted, but recognised by 99% of survey respondents. The kangaroo symbol is synonymous with Australia. Why you would want to dilute its impact is beyond me. This new multi-million-dollar brand logo was chosen by a committee set up under Malcolm Turnbull. Surprise, surprise. And on that committee are billionaires Andrew Twiggy Forrest and Mike Cannon-Brookes. Why, you may ask, is a coalition government so fixated on seeking advice from self-promoting billionaires, one who champions China and the other who pays no tax? Remember Twiggy Forrest defending China's conduct and claiming that Beijing is a great friend of Australia, even as the Chinese communist regime was bullying our government for wanting an independent inquiry into the origins and handling of the coronavirus catastrophe? Remember Twiggy Forrest having a Chinese diplomat gatecrash an announcement by the health minister? And who can forget the glowing publicity about Twiggy Forrest's Minderoo Foundation securing millions of COVID-19 tests from China at a cost of $325 million. Some folks mistakenly thought that was a generous donation, but Forrest's foundation was fully reimbursed by the Australian taxpayer. But at least Twiggy's company pays plenty of tax. Then there's Atlassian boss Mike Cannon-Brookes, who has been labelled Australia's most incessant poser. The global warming enthusiast is worth around $15 billion and is arguably the country's loudest virtue signaller. Cannon-Brookes is often lauded by the ABC and other leftist media for his climate change activism, and they were positively beside themselves earlier this year when the billionaire pledged $12 million to install solar and battery systems in areas affected by bushfire or flood. But as Joe Aston wrote in the Australian Financial Review, this was hardly an act of philanthropy. The money coming from the Cannon-Brookes Family Investment Fund is an investment in solar and battery microgrids for which there was likely a business case. Aston also notes that Cannon-Brookes, the climate change crusader, went to New York in September for the UN's Climate Action Summit, where Myanmar's Environment Minister made him feel ashamed to be Australian. Myanmar, as in the ecological catastrophe of Southeast Asia. And no kidding, Cannon Brooks then promptly took his family there on vacation to breathe the particulate matter that kills 45,000 people each year, or to observe the 10% of marine life that survived. When he's not singing the praises of failed states, Cannon Brooks is slamming the Morrison government for being backward, for not embracing zero emission targets, and is championing Zali Steggall as the country's potential saviour. But most galling about Cannon Brooks isn't his vacuous activism, but the fact that his multi-billion-dollar firm pays no tax on revenue generated in Australia, according to the Australian Financial Review. Atlassian pays zero company tax to Canberra on greater than $1 billion of revenue generated here, thanks in no small part to its use of the Research and Development Tax Incentive. So why are we listening to the likes of him instead of genuine great Australians? Business leaders like Gina Rinehart, whose contribution to the country is substantial and whose good deeds and charitable donations are not accompanied by 1,000 press releases. In 2019 alone, Hancock paid $1.14 billion in taxes and royalties. In the last 3 years, Gina Rinehart's company paid $2.7 billion in Commonwealth and state taxes and royalties. Indeed, Ms Rinehart contributes more in taxes than any other Australian. And yet, you will not see her contribution or achievements praised by the leftist media. Perhaps it's time that the government stop listening to self-promoters, rent-seekers and activists, whether it's about investing in renewables, taking a knee to Beijing, or adopting a new, hideously designed and bewilderingly expensive Australian-made logo.